It has been 80 years. 80 years since a new kind of weapon, one born from science, fear and desperation, turned the skies of Hiroshima and Nagasaki into gates of fire. In those moments, the world was split in two, before the bomb and after. Today, this story isn't just about military strategy or politics. It's about people, families, children and survivors who carried unimaginable trauma in silence. It's a story the world must continue to tell, because forgetting it is far more dangerous than remembering. By the summer of 1945, the Second World War had dragged on for 6 long, brutal years. Nazi Germany had fallen in May, but in the Pacific, Japan stood defiant. Despite months of devastating firebombings, including the attack on Tokyo that killed over 100,000 people, and despite the Soviet Union's declaration of war, Japan's military leadership rejected the Allies' call for unconditional surrender. They feared dishonor, the loss of the emperor, and a total dismantling of their way of life. President Harry Truman, newly in office after Roosevelt's death, faced a terrible decision. Military planners warned that a full-scale invasion of Japan could cost upwards of 1 million American and Japanese lives. But Truman had something else, something unprecedented. A new weapon developed under utmost secrecy, the atomic bomb. In his diary he wrote, "We have discovered the most terrible bomb in the history of the world." Some argued for a demonstration, others pushed for immediate use. In the end, Truman authorized the strike. The decision wasn't made lightly, but with chilling clarity. He wanted to end the war. He also wanted to send a message to Japan and perhaps even more urgently to the Soviet Union. On August 6, 1945, the American B-29 bomber Enola Gay soared above Hiroshima. At 8:15 a.m., it released a bomb known as Little Boy. It exploded about 600 meters above the city center. In an instant, tens of thousands of lives were erased. The air ignited, buildings vaporized, skin melted, people vanished where they stood, leaving behind only their shadows burned into concrete walls. By the end of the year, 140,000 people were dead, some within seconds, others after days of agony. Just 3 days later, on August 9th, a second bomb, this one nicknamed Fat Man, was dropped on Nagasaki. The terrain spared parts of the city from total annihilation, but the destruction was still staggering. Another 70,000 people would perish. Survivors described scenes of unbearable horror. Charred bodies piled in the streets, silent children with burns so severe their flesh hung in strips. One survivor, Setsuko Thurlow, was just 13 when she was thrown through the air by the Hiroshima blast. "I saw a bluish-white flash," she recalled. "When I came to, everything was dark, silent and full of smoke. I heard voices crying for help, but I couldn't move." The suffering didn't end when the smoke cleared. For those who survived the bombings, life became a slow-motion nightmare. Radiation sickness began to take hold. Hair fell out, gums bled, internal organs failed. Many who looked uninjured died days or weeks later. For others, the damage lingered in silence for decades. Psychological wounds, now recognizable as PTSD, manifested in dreams, flashbacks, uncontrollable panic, and deep depression. But perhaps even more cruel was the rejection. Survivors, known as hibakusha, were seen by their communities not as heroes but as damaged. Rumors spread that they were contagious or cursed. Many were shunned, unable to marry or find work. Parents feared their children would be born with mutations. One survivor said, "When I told them I was from Hiroshima, they stopped talking to me." The pain wasn't just physical, it was social, spiritual, and deeply personal. In recent years, some of these survivors found a voice. Their stories reached international platforms. In 2024, their organization, Nihon Hidankyo, was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. It was a recognition not just of their suffering, but of their fight to ensure that nuclear horror would never repeat itself. 17 years after the bombings, in October 1962, the world faced nuclear war again. But this time, not as a possibility, but as a countdown. The Cuban Missile Crisis began when US spy planes spotted Soviet nuclear missiles being installed just 90 miles off the coast of Florida. The confrontation between President John F. Kennedy and Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev became a 13-day standoff that brought the world to the edge of annihilation. What most people didn't know at the time was how close we truly came. One misunderstood signal, one nervous finger could have launched thousands of warheads. The US possessed over 26,000 nuclear weapons. The Soviets had more than 3,000. If launched, the result wouldn't have been a battle, it would have been planetary devastation. But diplomacy, secret negotiations, and sheer luck pulled the world back from the brink. Still, the message was clear. The danger didn't die in Hiroshima or Nagasaki, it had only grown. The bomb that leveled Hiroshima had a yield of about 15 kilotons. Within 2 decades, the United States and the Soviet Union had developed weapons hundreds, even thousands of times more powerful. The 1961 Soviet Tsar bomber remains the largest ever detonated, an unfathomable 50 megatons. It was a demonstration of raw, monstrous power, and it made Hiroshima look like a warning shot. And it wasn't just the power that changed, it was the delivery. Bombers gave way to intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, submarine-launched missiles, and multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles, or MIRVs. The nuclear arsenal became mobile, hidden, fast, and nearly impossible to intercept. Humanity had built not just a weapon, but an extinction machine and put it on hair-trigger alert. Nuclear weapons began as a desperate attempt to end a brutal war, but from the very beginning, their purpose was tangled with darker ambitions. Yes, the bomb ended World War II, but it also marked the start of a new kind of war, a cold one, fought in arsenals and policy rooms, where destruction was a permanent backdrop to diplomacy. We tell ourselves that nuclear weapons are a deterrent, that their very existence prevents war. And yet, the very presence of these weapons guarantees that one mistake, one escalation, one accident could end civilization. Today, 9 countries possess nuclear weapons. Others seek them. The treaties are fragile, the trust is thinner, and the lessons of Hiroshima and Nagasaki fade further with every generation. 80 years have passed since the sky caught fire over Japan. For most of the world, the bombings are history, distant images in grainy black and white. But for the survivors, and for those who listen, the memories are still alive. They remember the smell of burning flesh, the silence after the blast, the children who screamed without eyes, and yet out of this horror came a message. We are not just victims, said Setsuko Thurlow, we are messengers. The message is simple, never again. This is the weight we carry, the memory we owe, and the question we must ask, again and again, as long as these weapons exist. Do we have the wisdom to never use them again? Thank you for watching Tales of History. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the past and learned something new about the events that shaped our world. If you found this video interesting, please give it a thumbs up and share it with others who love history as much as we do. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of our future episodes. Until next time, keep exploring the fascinating stories of history with us. And remember, history isn't just the past, it's the key to understanding our present and shaping our future.